Dus het mag.
Zeggen dat iedereen...
Jij bent chef.
Hello everybody. We're going to start in a few minutes, so take a seat or a stand.
Ik denk niet dat het tweede scherm aan te zetten, toch? Volgens mij is het nogal de toer. Ik zal.
Ja, dus moet je even ambitie.
Ja, ik ga even naar achteren. Dat heb je ook al een wedstrijd gedaan, maar
There's one chair here available at the second row. Somebody wants to sit.
Voor mij was het wel echt helemaal weg toen ik toen ik 65 was, heb ik op hoofdklasse niveau. Ik was van spelen, we zijn nog wel 2 jaar bezig. En in het weekend een wedstrijd. Alleen dat nog steeds door het hele land.
Okay, I think there are still a few people coming up, but let's just start and then join us when they're here. Can everybody hear me in the back? Yeah? Yeah? Thumbs up? Okay. Yeah, so welcome everybody at the first edition of Design System Night. We're really pleased with everybody that showed up. I think we're with 100 people, maybe more. There was a long line downstairs. So thanks everybody. Yeah, so Design System Night was organized by NG Studios Meetup Group, Den Haag Lean UX, and we organize different meetups a couple of times a year, subjects like design systems, design sprints, lean innovation. So stay tuned for more events coming up in 2020. But tonight will be about design systems, and the main theme of tonight will be design systems in the real world. So we're going to talk about the research we did. Matthijs is going to present the state of design systems in the Netherlands. And after that we have 2 really cool case studies. One by ANWB, presented by Chloe and Sanne. And one of Coolblue, presented by Chris. And at the end there will be a Q&A with all the speakers. So save your questions until the end, and they will be answered. But first, I want to put someone in the spotlight. Our lovely host, SDU. And they made it possible for us to host the event at a much bigger location than our own office. So please give a warm applause to Yvonne from SDU.
Well, thank you. Welcome everybody at SDU at our very brand new office at SDU. We are not, well, for a couple of months we are staying now here. Welcome at Design System Night. We are very happy that we could help you and host this event for you. For those who don't know SDU, we are an online publisher for mostly for fiscal and the legal market. So. For lawyers and tax advisors, etc. Maybe you know Opmaat or NDR, some of our products. And we try to create innovative products for them, for those who need law and regulations in their daily work. And in fact, one of the biggest things we are working on right now is the design system of our very own. So we are building a new SDU front end, and we're creating a design system with help of our friends from NG Studio, because they are helping us out on UX and front end experience. So this is a very relevant evening for us as well. So we try to we want to learn something from it as well. And well, yeah, welcome again. And of course we already have the help from you guys, but we still could use some more UX help. So there's some. We left you a message in the goodie bag. So if you're interested to help, come help us out. So you can you can contact us. That was it. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Yvonne. Well, from my own experience, I can highly recommend joining SDU. So let's go to the first talk of tonight by my very own colleague Matthijs. Well, Matthijs will talk about the research we did. We started in September, the State of Design Systems in the Netherlands, 2019. It's the second year in a row we're doing this research, so I'm really curious to see what the differences are and what we learned this year. So give it up for Matthijs.
Thank you, Esther. So maybe the first things, I saw a lot of last couple of people join in. So this is first talk, and there is more pizza on the way. So also good news. And hopefully with that good news, we can get started on the talk. So this, I think Esther already mentioned. Welcome everybody, my name is Matthijs Sunneman. I work at NG Studio, we're a design agency and we specialize in design systems. And well, today for the talk I'm assuming you have an idea what a design system is. And if you don't, it will all become clear during the talks and also during the talks of AMB and Coolblue. Today we're going to share this, the results of our survey. I was just curious who filled in our survey. Maybe raise a hand. Okay, that's about half the room. So you'll be the first people to get email. And you'll get a report. We promise you, the guys that and girls that filled in the survey first, will get the report first, and everybody else can download it on our website starting next week. That report contains all the results, and today I'll just share the highlights. That's not all that we shared with you guys. We promised there would be cake, and we sent those out. 5 participants randomly selected got a cake. We promised it was not a lie, and it actually happened. The cake was there. So, what are we going to talk about today? Is the State of Design Systems 2019. Is because when you start with your design system and you look around worldwide, you see all these really cool design systems. You see Polaris, IBM's Carbon, maybe Google Material, and you think, wow, why doesn't my design system look like that? And it's of course not a fair comparison because those are huge global companies. So what we want to do with our State of Design Systems is to show you what is the State of Design Systems in the Netherlands. So all of our participants are working in the Netherlands. Everybody that filled in the survey works in a Dutch company. So you can compare yourself now with these results. How am I doing? You know, how am I doing with my design system? So my talk is in 4 parts. First, I'll tell you a little bit about who were these people that participated, where do they work, etc. And then I'll share some overall results, like tooling and what are the kind of things that you put in your design systems. I've got a very interesting thing called surviving the first year, because we see some differences between having a design system for less than a year or more than a year. And then I have some tips. If you have any questions, just write them down. I'd love to go over them with a beer later on. Of course, we have the Q&A where we can go deep into your questions as well. So, who participated? We're very lucky with these numbers. We're very happy with the response. Most of them were designers. And we also had some developers and people working as a product owner or in management. And there was also a very nice distribution of the type of people that participated. Around half of them work in-house, so they work at an organization, and the other half either worked as in an agency or is working freelance. So for the rest of the talk today, we'll focus on the people in-house, participants from in-house teams. But I just want to give you like a brief overview of what those other participants said. What are the differences? So looking at people working in-house versus not working in-house, we see that participants, freelancers working in agencies generally have a lot more experience. They've more of them say they've worked with design systems for over 2 years, and 1 in 5 has made more than 5 design systems already. But we also see there are some other differences. People working in a house have more experience with code in design systems, and also content, so things like content guidelines and content blocks. And another thing is that the tooling is a little bit different. It seems like we're all addicted to Sketch, because either in-house or agency and freelance is 60% work on Sketch in-house teams, but for agencies that's 70%, 71%. And also they're working a lot more with Abstract as a tooling, so it seems to be a little bit more focused on design tooling, whereas participants in-house have a little bit more experience also with design system specific tooling. Things like Storybook and Zero Height are mentioned here a lot more. And another thing, Figma apparently is used more in-house than for design agencies or for freelancers. And another thing, last thing that I wanted to share with about the difference between in-house and freelance or agencies is we asked them also what are the kind of struggles that you see people have with design systems. And we see that agency and freelance participants focus a lot more on content in the design system. It's not complete or etc. And a lot more on tooling, whereas in-house teams have a lot more struggles with process and people. Things like maybe adoption or staffing. Okay, so like I said, today it will be sharing results from in-house teams. And also there we saw a very cool split. So we saw that we had a couple of really big names. Of course, people from Coolblue filled in the survey, and AMB, that's also why they're here. But we had KPN, TomTom, Philips participants as well, and several of the big insurance companies. But it was a nice split, because we also had some organizations with less than 500 people, and also a quarter of the people worked in organizations with less than 100 people. So it's a really nice mix. And of course there are some differences, whether you're a big organization or a small one. That makes sense. Big organizations, 70% say they have a design system older than a year. And that makes sense also because they have more capacity in-house. 86% say they have a team of designers, or they have designers working in product teams. They have multiple designers in their agency, or in their company, I mean. And for smaller companies, there are actually almost half of them have either one or no designer working there. And yeah, of course, if you have more people, then also you have more stuff in there in your design system. It just contains more. There are also a lot of similarities, because we asked them what are the struggles that you have with your design system, and they have the same struggles. We see the exact same patterns there, and I'll get back into that later. So some more overall results, or let's delve into the overall results now. Tooling is one of the things when companies approach us for design system work, they are always very keen on talking about tooling. So what do we see? Really a lot of people, in-house teams working with Sketch as a design tool. Also a lot of people, especially starting this year, have started working with Storybook, 1 in 3. And then Figma is also a design tool. Storybook is a tool where you can put code components and share them. And you can do a lot more with Storybook, by the way. So anyway, like I said, we saw a lot of changes also because we did it last year as well. So we saw that really huge entrance from Storybook, from almost nobody last year in 2018 up to 36%. That's huge. Also, Figma was mentioned last year as there was one participant said, I think it's a good tool to try out maybe. And that went to 23% of people actually saying they use it for their design systems. And then, yeah, the same Zero Height is also a tool specifically for design systems, and it can link code and design together and you can add documentation there as well. Wasn't mentioned last year. Now 1 in 10 is using it. And what we see is that actually the conclusion that we are drawing is that design system specific tooling is really growing up, because we see less people are making homegrown solutions, and I think that's because they're transitioning more to zero height storybook combinations. And yeah, that our tooling is it's growing up, it's becoming a real thing. Interestingly, Envision GSM dropped, and I don't know why that is. Maybe if anybody has an idea, we can talk about it later. Some special mentions. We had another category people could fill in things. People mentioned Vue Style Guidist a lot, and Confluence for documentation. And there was one person that mentioned using PowerPoint to maintain the design system. I don't know if that person is here tonight. I'm really curious. If you are here, just let me know, and we can talk about it. 1 in 10 used Frontify, and I'm singling them out because Frontify is in the house today. We'll have a talk at the end of the night from Frontify. You can ask them a lot of questions. I think probably you guys want that number to go up, right? From 10% high to much, much more, right? And they can tell you, maybe you can convince them later on tonight. So we can compare to last year, but we can also compare to the worldwide average, because there was a design system survey done by Sparkbox, and looking at the differences, we see Storybook is a tool that we kind of can agree on for the Netherlands versus the world, but there are some major differences here. Envision mentioned here a lot globally. And Pattern Lab, for us, it dropped. It's also a tool for front-end developers mainly. And worldwide, it's still used a lot. In the Netherlands, it drops from last year. And the tool that we're all addicted to, Sketch, was not mentioned that much at all. So I don't know what happened there. One explanation that I have is the survey was maybe filled in more by developers than designers, but still, there's a huge difference. So that's about tooling. If you want to know more, the report is coming next week, and you can go crazy. Load more details about tooling. So that's how we make it, but what's in it? I think this will come as no surprise. Color, typography, and 9 out of 10 is adding form components, things like form fields, buttons, etc. And also another mention is mentioned a lot was icons. They're in there as well. In the other category, we didn't have an option that people could choose, but they've just mentioned it a lot, saying, "Oh yeah, we also have icons in there." Yeah, I won't mention everything that's on the slide. You can see it yourself, and of course, you'll get the report where you can see the whole list as well. What we saw is that large organizations, they generally tend to have the same pattern as smaller organizations. It's just they have more of everything, and it's especially true for things like usage guidelines and design principles, and also code. So those are the 3 things that really make a difference between having a big organization or a small one. Also here, some growth and some stagnation. We apparently have been really busy since 2018 adding UI patterns. That went up a lot. It went from 47% to 66%. Also, we've been adding things specifically about our design system, things like process, how to get new components in there, or update current components. We also added things about our design system. We wrote things about our design system team in there. These are the big climbers. But something happened with our branding guidelines. I don't know, maybe we've just been so busy adding design system team members to in our documentation we forgot about branding guidelines, or maybe we decided we didn't want them in our design systems. I'm just curious. I don't have an explanation for this, so if you do, we can talk later over a beer. Also, layout systems dropped since last year. Branding made a huge dive. It went from half of the people mentioning it was in design systems last year to 38% now. which is also strange if you look to the global results, because globally, a lot of people put branding guidelines in their design system. Compared globally, we just have less of everything in their design systems. But especially accessibility guidelines and code. This is the number for JavaScript code, but also other code like HTML and CSS. We just have less of it. Less people report that they have it in their design system. Also content guidelines, we don't have it that much. So, but maybe you're looking at this and you see all these amazing numbers and you see all these tooling and you think, but Matthijs, I'm still working on my design system, and I just want to say you're doing fine. Okay, don't panic. It's okay, because most people are still working on their design system, and this number actually went up from last year. So more people are working on their design system now than last year. And I've looked at specific people that filled it in, and there are people that updated it. Last year they said, yes, I have a design system, and now they say I'm working on it. So I guess you learned the lesson. You're never done with your design system. There were some people who do not have one. It's 1 in 10. Mainly they mention budget constraints or no design or Java front-end skills. So 1 in 50% mentioned they don't have a design system because of budget. Also, some people said they weren't sure if they had a design system, and these two categories I filtered out of the rest of the analysis. So you're never done. And even if you have been working on it for a while, I've asked if you look at, for instance, people who worked on it for 2 or more years, they also say we're still working on it. So that if you look at this, you see most people are in the category of actually having a design system less than a year. A lot of people have just started with it. And so I think it is a nice split to see, though, because it's 43% is in the 1+ year category. And that's also why we gave you guys a special sticker. So maybe a raise of hands who worked more than their design system more than a year. Okay, that is also kind of half again. That really represents this graph, I think. So I think it's cool for people to talk. If you had a design system less than a year or more than a year, it's nice to talk a bit with each other. So those people less than a year, what are you up for? We asked them how was the process of getting to a design system. People mentioned it was a bumpy ride. It was a long process. It was chaotic. It was an adventure. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. You might experience problems. Things like team maturity. 1 in 3 out of participants said they had that problem. Staffing. 40% of people mentioned staffing problems. Maintenance, also 40%. And the big thing is adoption. 45% of people mention adoption as being a problem. And the same problems, large organizations, small organizations, doesn't matter. Everybody experiences this problem in the same amounts. And this is very similar to the global struggles people have. Except team maturity is much more a problem in the Netherlands than globally, and I don't know why. But as you can see, most of these are people problems. When people come to us for a design system, they talk about tooling, and they say funding is a problem, or they're expecting things with process. But all of this is mainly people, so be sure you involve the right people. Only 1 in 10 says funding is a problem. In tooling, only 4% say that tooling is a problem, is a struggle for their design system. So maybe don't worry about tooling so much. So if you're experiencing these problems, what we want to say is just hang in there, just keep going, because if you last more than a year, everything will be better. It's an investment. After a year, more people say that their design system is successful. Almost 90% of people have a design system more than a year say their design system is successful. And they mention things like consistency and speed of development. There's more. There's just more in your design system. If you have it more than a year, you're in the purple bar. See more of everything, especially components, grid system, and Also a lot more about process, onboarding, design system team, design system specific documentation, guidelines, standards, everything. You have so last more than a year. That's what we want to say. After a year, you rate yourself higher in maturity. So there's a maturity index for your design system. Stage 1, you don't have it. 2, PDF or a wiki. And 3, you have a UI kit and code examples. You're going nice. And then stage 4, this all goes automatically into production code, website code. Stage 5, it really is part of your organization. So you see, if you're less than a year, only 1 in 4 says they're in stage 1 in 4 say they're in stage 1 or 2. But if you look at more than a year, look, everybody is stage 3 plus. So and a lot of people are actually in stage 5, where your design system really is part of your organization. It takes time. Daily usage goes up. People having a design system more than a year say they use it every day, 70% of people. And more people say they have code in production. So the code that you have in your design system, whether it goes into your website or your app, a lot of people who have a design system less than a year say nothing goes in there. More than a year, even 75% plus is really big. So, and those problems that I mentioned earlier, yeah, those are still there. But they are different. So what we see, if you have less than a year, you're having more problems with adoption and funding. Whereas, and this makes sense, right? If you have a design system more than a year, you have more problems with maintenance and staffing. You have this amazing design system, you need to maintain it, you need more people for that. So the problems are different. It's just, yeah. What I do want to say for people who are experiencing problems with funding, this is an interesting thing that I found. And when we ask people about the benefits for your design system, designers mainly mention UI consistency, efficiency increase, code reusability, maintaining brands, and things that product owners and managers also talk about, but they really value brand standards more than what designers mention. So maybe you didn't think about that when you're asking for funding. Of course, UX UI consistency is very important, code reusability, very important, efficiency increase, very important, but this branding standards might be a good argument for convincing management. So we want to finish with 5 tips to maybe take you beyond your first year. We asked everybody in the survey, what is the best tip you can give people who are working on a design system? So this was an open text field. 1 in 3 mentioned start small, which is a huge number for an open text field. So that's basically the best tip. 1 in 5 says just do it, so just start, don't overthink it. But there were also a couple of people really that mentioned do your research and focus on user needs. So don't just randomly start with a design system, make sure you start at a good starting point. And I'd just like to ask, to add, stay small, because we saw once you have a design system, maintenance and staffing becoming a big problem, so don't grow too big. Keep it lean. Second tip, I have 5, so communication is key. What do people mean with that? They say things like, talk about it, have a good story for your design system, and mention that it's a growing thing, that it's not a project that is going to be done within a month or 2. Involve others early was mentioned also by 1 in 5. And I would just want to add, be smart who you involve, because we've asked you guys in the survey who is mainly maintaining and using your design system. 80 to 90% is design and front end, so those definitely involve those early. But only 30% mentioned back end and product owners, and only 15% mentioned copywriters, marketers actually using or maintaining their design system. So this might be very different for your organization. You know, maybe in your organization you really want to involve copywriter, because that is the important part of your product. So be very smart who you involve. Yeah, if you want to add video to your design system, add people working with video, for instance. Just get the right people on board. You cannot do it alone. We asked people, what are you using mainly in your daily life? People said, I use typography and color and grid. And some other people said they use components. So make sure your design system supports both. People that want to build, so give people a steering wheel and a car. And lastly, my last tip, it's okay to ask for help. Sometimes it may look like you have to do it all by yourself, but 1 in 4 says they've asked for external help. Of people working in house teams said they had external help, and those things are usually things like extra design capacity and knowledge specifically about design systems. So I think this is also a great opportunity, since you're here and so many people have worked with design systems and everybody has experience with it, right? To really take this time and use the breaks to talk to each other and exchange some experiences, ask some questions about tooling, etc. And to help you guys with that a bit as well, we give away 30-minute consults with either me or Maurice. We're the design system leads at NG Studio. In your gift bag, you can find a code for a 30-minute consult. So it's a free consult, and we're really looking forward to you using that. Also, we are having the blue stickers, so if you have any questions, you can also just ask us immediately. The blue stickers are us, NG Studio, the people that organized the evening. And with that, that was my last slide. So I would really like to thank you. I hope you learned something today, and yeah, thank you. And the Q&A, you can ask all the questions also in the break later on. I just have one small tiny thing. If you really like design systems and you're a front-ender, or you really like React, coding in React, or you just like coding in general, we have a competition and you can win €1,000 if you join NG Studio based on the competition. So if you know anybody who's looking for a job, or you are looking for a new opportunity, ngstudio.com/frontendwedstrijd.
Well, thank you so much, Matthijs. And now I have a question for you, because at NG Studio we always want to learn from the things we do. So we have a little task for you. Give your feedback. So if you would all just please grab your phones and scan the code and give Matthijs a star rating.
Yep.
And a line of feedback. We would highly appreciate, and then maybe the ladies from ANWB can come forward and we can prepare the slides.
Ja. We hebben even een kleine break toch?
Ja.
Nou, heel cool.
And we have a few minute break, so if you need to go to the toilet or want to grab a drink, this is your cue.
Oké. Ja, ik was echt heel blij met die tijd. Je kunt hem ook zien hier. Wat vond je?
Ja, toch?
Ja?
Dat is laten zien, want daar gaan we weer naar. En ik heb wel een antwoord op deze.
Ja, want?
Wij gebruiken deze.
Wij gebruiken het ook voor een heel verrassend dat het weer bij zo'n stand is.
Dat is niet, ja, wel een beta versie. Dat is een goede best wel fout.
Ja, met die jongens.
Maar wij zijn dus wel ja, wij hebben ook al een vision prototype festivals. Dus erbij kan dan nog een extra tour erbij. Wat is linker? Niet heel erg wat ja, het was voor mij echt, ik denk dat wij het super. Ja, het echt.
Maar ik vond het vroeger een of andere manier veel meer documentatie. Waarom wel iets wat je gebruikt als...
Ja, zij zijn zo wij zijn
Ja.
Dus dat is
Het is een beetje where components go to die. Iets als zero height bijvoorbeeld.
Ja, we zijn aan het kijken. Maar ja, nee, ja, daar moet je ook gewoon van maken. Geen bal van bewegen.
Jullie willen graag dat ik dat met een home
Ja.
Ja.
Terwijl het wel omlaag, maar inderdaad. Ja, dat is wel. Ja, maar het werkt niet. We hebben natuurlijk ook marketing, maar alles moet wel. Maar we zijn nog wel.
Nou ja, goed. Wij hebben nog wel een hele goede ervaring in de zero. Ik waar ons een beetje samen. Ja, maar dat heeft wel zijn eigen nadeel. Het fijn is wel, je kunt dan wel wat makkelijker van tooling gaan wisselen. In Visual DSM is wel heel erg gelinkt aan Sketch en aan design. Waar ik trouwens niet van weet of ze daar nog mee bezig zijn. Dat is heel groot verschil. Uit de browser, dit is echt zwaar. Nee, dat is ook zo. Ja, het is meer gewoon ja, dat is warm hier. Ja. Ik denk dat ze ook wel weer goed plezier naar
Okay, I think we're ready to start again. So if everybody wants to take their seat, we're going to start in 1 minute. Okay, we're gonna start again. So Matthijs shared the results with you just now, and we did some benchmarking. So we saw how we're doing, we can compare ourselves, but now let's go more in depth. So the first case study of tonight is by ANBB. Sanne and Chloe, the UX and visual managers of their design system Poncho, will share the journey they had in creating their design systems and what they learned along the way. So give a warm applause for Sanne and Chloe.
So hi everybody, we're very excited to be here. Thank you NG Studio for inviting us. We will take you on the journey of Poncho, the AMB design system. So my name is Sanne Kloot. I'm a UX designer at AMB. Chloe and I work together in the design system team. And the AMB is a very large known organization in our society. We are already like 135 years existed, yeah. And we're working together on products and services with 4,000 colleagues. And products and services like the roadside assistance, insurances, leisure and vacations, and a lot more. You can imagine that a lot of people are working together for these products and services. We already are 30 developers, 17 UX designers, 2 UX researchers, and 1 head of UX, and also 1 visual designer.
Yes, that's me. I'm Chloe. And I'm gonna take you to the beginning of our journey. So, about 2 years ago, ANWB had no single source of truth when it came to design. And that became a big challenge to work with all the different teams. And yes, because of that, you had a lot of discussions and a lot of inconsistency. And on the other hand, the developers already set up a front-end component library in Storybook, but there wasn't a connection between development and design. So, and also there wasn't something for the whole organization yet. First, we started analyzing the current state. So we looked at the tooling and the workflow. We conducted a survey with all the UX designers and asked questions like, what tools do you use at the moment, and how do you collaborate with all the developers, and with whom do you check your final designs. Then we looked at the process and did the inventory. So we had this huge brown paper in the middle of the office where we created an overview of all the components and all the elements. And there we just organized and structured it and looked also at the naming. And because this was in the middle of the office, it became very visible. So a lot of people came and got engaged, asked questions, and that's also when the IT board became interested.
Yes, so first we started testing some tools. So we know already from the survey that Chloe conducted that we saw that many designers were working with Sketch. And at that time, still only DSM was synchronizing with Sketch. So we decided to, we had a lot of things on Confluence, other documentation from Photoshop files, a little bit of Sketch also. Everywhere there were rationals. So we put everything together in Sketch and DSM. So Sketch consisted mainly out of the sketch symbols, and DSM was there for the rationals. And we noticed with putting everything together in Sketch and DSM that there were a lot of inconsistencies, and we already noticed that rationals weren't clear, and we noticed that we needed some more than only tooling to help us out. So over time, UX designers were already using Sketch, and also the front-end developers were already having a component library, as Chloe said, and they are using Storybook. They work with Preact, but still the bridge was missing between all those tools. So we decided to talk with the front-end lead and other developers to find out how we could work together, and we quickly came to the one thing we see all. Is that there was missing a process. So we decided quickly that we should design a process and to create a bridge between all the toolings. And eventually this became one show.
Yes, we've noticed that it's very important to give your design system a name. So we first started with the ANWB design system, so it was like a process name. But people couldn't really relate to it or remember it, so that's why we came up with Poncho. But why Poncho? Because, Poncho, we gave Poncho the qualities of being protective, transparent, accessible, and also transferable. And the Labrador dog symbolizes that it's your friend, it's loyal, and it will also guide you through this system. It matches the core qualities and values of the ANWB, so therefore it's a perfect fit for ANWB design system. And also, Poncho is a product that we sell, so it's also a fit in that way. But then we were talking about, we have the tooling, we have the branding, we have the name, but we don't have the process. So we came up with this process. For a designer to add a new component in our system, you first create a design proposal. We use Trello for this, so you can make your own request card in Trello, and there you put in your proposal. And then you can do the desk field research or find data or even benchmark. And all this information you also put in this card. When you've learned and you've iterate it, you have a definite proposal with all the rationales of how does this component work and what's the purpose of it. Then the developers can build it in Storybook, and we at the same time will add it as a component in Sketch Library for UX designers to use it. Also, we're synchronizing it to the DSM Design System Manager of InVision, and there we put in also the rationales of how it works, what it is, etc. And then also important, the show and tell, that in every chapter, the development chapter, UX chapter, and then the component is born and ready to use.
Yeah, so in the beginning we didn't know if a design system could even fix our problems. So what we did was we read a lot of articles and books, and we looked at other organizations like IBM, Atlassian and Trello, and we learned a lot from them. And we learned that we don't have to reinvent the wheel again. So this saves a lot of cost and time, and you can also put all the time and cost into doing more research. So you have a lot of questions about the user or problems that you're seeing or opportunities, and you can put all that time and cost in the user. So why not do that? It's also very handy for rapid validation. You have all the components and elements in the design system, so new teams or products can easily use all that components to build a product or service and have a much faster time to market. What we see also is also a problem with us is the silos. I think you will recognize this. People are working together in a product or a service team, and they're fully focused on what they are doing, and they're missing the collaboration between tools and departments. So we notice with the design system that teams will work more together, and eventually this will create an ecosystem of continuity, improvements and validation. So you were wondering, how do I get support? So it's very important to tell them why. We as UX designers always ask why. So we have to tell them why. And we have to show them the values. Just for example, Chloe told us about the design system wall. It was very important to show the organization that we are seeing these problems. So showing them that there was a lot of inconsistencies, like overused buttons, for example. They told us, oh yeah, I see the problem now. Maybe you can go further with the solutions. So make the future problems also clear. So what if we don't have a design system? What will be the future then? So what problems we'll be seeing? And third, give them insights in the investment and the outcome. So they have to invest in something, maybe design system teams, more developers, more designers, or even other colleagues. But they also have, you have to add some tools or process, and this takes time. So you have to tell them why they should invest, and also tell them what the outcome will be. And the outcome they would like to see in money, of course. So create awareness in the organization by showing and doing. So what we did was a lot of presentations. Chloe will show you later on in the presentation. It's so very important to show them and show them what they're doing. So get a quick talk with your manager or other designers and front teams to create awareness. And people would like to think with you or create with you. So invite them to sessions to collaborate for the design systems. We do this with the Poncho days, and we invite UX designers to think with us, and also the developers are doing this also with a front-end Poncho day. So this is very helpful. And keep them informed. You have very important stakeholders in the organization, a lot with the design system. So keep them informed with FYIs. Or when people would like to speak face-to-face, just do that, because they're very important for your process and for the adoption in the organization. So in the end, this resulted for us in Poncho becoming part of IT and the customer experience strategy.
So the ingredients to success for us was getting it out there, giving presentations in the organization, but also giving presentations in other organizations and talk about it. Also, approaching it from all angles is important because then people can't deny that there isn't a design system. What Sanne just quickly told about the Poncho Days is organize and facilitate moments by designers for designers so that they can build and discuss and centralize their discussions about new components. And also have a dedicated design system, and I'll tell you later why we think that's important. Here you see an example of us presenting in the organization with the goal to share the mission, the values and the purpose of why the design system is so important. The effect here was that people were now talking about it, Poncho was a thing, and asking questions about it, and also finding out how they could collaborate. Then we had an article featured in our employee magazine, Blik. This created like more awareness in the whole organization, so a wider audience. And this also had the effect that people now were informed, and it created recognition, so there were now faces behind Poncho. For the UX designers, we create a monthly Poncho Day where we all work together on new components. But we also have like fun days where we just zoom in parts of the process. For example, this is Poncho Bug Day. And here the task was for all the participants to find and report as many bugs or inconsistencies as they could find. And by doing this, you could really see the urgency of that consistency is important. And the effect was that at the end of a few hours, the end of the day, we had more than 100 inconsistencies, bugs found, and a winning team that had the star bugs coffee set, so that really worked out great. We also had a Poncho speed testing day. Here we motivated colleagues to test and research in a more accessible way, because we hear the argument about designers telling, oh, we don't have the time to test, or we don't have the money. But here we organized the day with a few respondents, and the effect was that they can really test quickly and have valuable insights to finalize their designs the same day.
So what did we learn? I think to be successful, you need the following. So you need shared goals. Shared goals means that people will look at what you're doing at the same level. So from in our organization, the goal, high objective was becoming more one of AMB, and that means that the design system will fulfill that goal. So it helps to create an objective in the organization to connect the design system with. So everybody see that the design system is fulfilling that. So as for support, we already told in the presentation that it's very important to ask everybody for support that can help you. So what we do with the Poncho Days, but also we do design critique with the team and ask them about what do you think about the design system, how is it working for you, what are things that we have to do for you to design and develop better. So that's very important. And also I said learn from other organizations. So they have a story, and the story is very important to learn and look what you can take away from it to iterate in your own organization. They're doing it a lot longer than we are, so they're very successful, so why not look at them and take away what you can. So and last, make iteration and learn by doing. We just started, so in the survey that Matthijs already showed, just do it, it really worked. We started with one version and we just created everything around it, and everything became more clear and it became more of a process and something for the whole organization. It takes a while, but it's worth it.
Yes, so where are we now? We're still busy analyzing the process and tooling, so it's important to grow, so you need to iterate, as Sanne just told. And we're also looking at the integration or collaboration with the rest of the departments, because Angie Studios just told us that a lot of design systems aren't complete yet with all the other aspects. And I think that's important because then it's more complete and then also useful for the whole organization. And then also a design system team. We're glad to say that we now for a month have a dedicated design system team. First we did all the design system work next to our own job. So now we can really take it serious with the whole company and let the company see that we value this and can take the time to really do all the deep work, explore the right answers, and looking at trends and keeping it up to date. Next steps for us are letting the design system grow with more parts, the templates, the patterns, content, all the content components and the guidelines. And also the branding aspect is interesting because now all the branding aspects lies with all the branding marketeers and they should update it on a regular basis, but we don't have the connection right now, so we're looking at that at the moment. And also for apps, we have all the components, how they should look like, but because app development has a different workflow, it's not the same as how we work for web. So that's now a challenge for us to look at how we could integrate apps in our design system. As you might have noticed, a design system isn't perfect or is never finished. This was just an example of our journey, and we hope we've inspired you on your design system journey. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Really great talk. I saw a lot of people taking pictures and writing, so I think that's a good sign. Well, same as we did for Matthijs, yes. Some feedback for Sanne and Chloe. And in the meantime, we will take a short break because I just got a sign that there's more beer and there's more pizza. So we can and for the next presentation, for the people in the back, Matthijs is going to set up a second screen at the other side of the bar. So you can also have a seat, and that's also the spot where Frontify will have their presentation. So we have a little break. We'll be back in 5 to 10 minutes.
Ja, een beetje.
Het is een heel stuk poeder al. Daar dat middenstuk is nog net een beetje. Het is veel beter op de raam voor mij opgestaan. Ik had hem een beetje later heen. Vandaag had ik hem helemaal op worst tijd.
Maar je hebt genoeg tijd.
Ja, moet je dat doen. Toch even dubbel checken voor het straks en even aan de teacher klaar ben. Dat is ook zo. Het hangt er ook voor mensen ook werk af. Ja, maar het zijn natuurlijk hele andere vragen.
Dat je prestaties Ik denk dat iemand nog die hier is.
Ja, precies. Ik word op een gegeven moment op kartjes neergezet werden.
Just a quick note, this area is being recorded for the live stream. So, I mean, I don't think we're discussing your pin codes or personal life.
Helemaal aan de designkant. Ja. De laatste fase, de vijfde.
Is de wording.
Waar zijn de
Zal ik hem even overzetten?
We hebben ook van je definitie af.
Ja. Ik heb vervelende spelers. De meest lastige scenario is waarin we zitten. En dus ook zo is
Ja, de front-end code en de designs erin samengekomen, dat kan ik...
ik heb daar wel een beeld bij, maar het zit nog zo lang in. Dat zou echt niet dat dat is.
Ik ga nou even het tweede scherm aanzetten.
Ja, ik doe.
Ik maak er niet meer uit een klein letter. Ik ben ook niet.
Als design moet je gewoon die eerste 3 stappen gaan zetten.
Ik heb afgelopen week in een release bij jullie design system gefixt. Ik geloof dat je dit naast nou wat vooruit te verzet. Zeker de design is wat aanwekt.
Stef zei dat dit een pittige sessie werd. Dus
Ga je presenteren?
Ja, ik kan het verhaal waarschijnlijk zo vertellen.
Toch? Oh, oké. Ik heb niet slecht meer.
In ieder geval, omdat we sowieso de designers wel op tijd hebben in de periode. Begin dan aan je designkant.
Daar in de hoek is het zo.
Ja, en inventory maken en gaan itereren en...
Omdat we veel tijd hebben, ik ook al die...
Ik zou bij die design graag willen inzetten. Wil ik niet sturen maanden om ook de legacy van het weg te kiezen. Zodat we daar echt eens een keer een systeem hebben kunnen bouwen. Maar nu werken we altijd een oudje kousje en weer alle dingen in. Dus dat moet ook een keer gewoon weg te zetten. Ik ben wel aan het geven voor de
Ik wil ook wel legacy.
ja, maar als je nog steeds een content legacy van 10 jaar loopt, dan zit je daar nog altijd met steeds crappy data. Dat is ook de hele ding.
Alles weg wil je nog nieuwe dingen.
Nou ja, kijk, dat is natuurlijk wel een kans bij de als ze doen zijn. Nu ook bij de
Ja, precies.
ja, en dat is natuurlijk een heel mooi uitgangspunt voor de aankomende jaren, want dan kan je dat. Alleen ik denk wel dat wij template in de kan niet in lekker gebruikt worden voor bijvoorbeeld binnen een design system. Op de manier waarop wij het toepassen. Kan wel.
Je zei met testing toch? Dat het lastig is.
Ja, maar die testing is wel lastig.
Ja.
Het kan wel, maar dan moeten we dedicated mensen opzetten, zeg maar. En ook best wel ervaren mensen, om dat wat toegankelijker te maken.
Ja.
Dan heeft mijn voorkeur veel meer om het vanuit het boek te zoeken. Ook niet de mensen daar een uitdaging te gaan daar zie ik wel heel erg. Dan heb je een template in lekker, zit er wel
Gewoon over het hele
dus ook een template waar developers vandaag mee willen zijn. Dus wat je natuurlijk wel doet, bij Hellebaars, zoals wij dat hebben willen, heel erg zelf willen.
ja.
Dus ik ben nu bezig met dat information. Dan zou ik graag een fase aanknopen waar we de legacy gaan wegpoetsen. Dan zou ik graag een soort van concept doen. helemaal wel een challenge. Ik heb echt studenten van de service kunnen zetten in combinatie met veel runway. En dat zullen we prima doen op de checkout. Dan kunnen we al geïsoleerd meten of de performance goed genoeg is. En als dat zo is, dan kunnen we zoiets uitrollen. Voordat je daar bent.
Even een weekendje doorwerken. Ja, precies. Dus die 5 fasen die je daar maar. Maar moet ook fase 2,5 komen. Ja, precies. En dan dat is een goede startpunt. Ja. Dat gaat ons meer van een design.
Tegen die tijd kan je misschien langzaam aanhaken.
Ja, maar dan hebben wij ook altijd wel een goed verhaal voor je als je aan vastgelegd. Ja, dan kan je dat veel makkelijker ook gaan iemand maken. Voor mij is het ook best wel een beetje nagaan. Ja, precies.
Ik zei het.
Ik denk dat er nog wel mensen wat zeggen, maar het wordt zo veel gedaan.
Kijk even af, ik heb wat vragen in de kant.
Oh, ja, precies. Ja, dat is wel leuk.
En ik geloof daar ook wel echt in dat we op de duur wel een heel mooi product waren.
Ja, zeker weten. Ja. En ik geloof erin dat het ons ook heel veel gaat opleveren. Ja. Dat is het nu van, we zitten nu een beetje vast in de huidige situatie. Ja. En ja, als je daarmee door blijft gaan, dan blijf je daar gewoon maar in vastzitten. En dan heb je over 5 jaar hetzelfde geld weer aan te geven van, oh, fort, dan had je 5 jaar eerder moeten doen. Ja. Dus we zijn op deze steeds. Ja.
Het scheelt in ieder geval dat ik er gewoon nu een beetje fulltime aan de slag ga.
Ja.
Er zouden eigenlijk meer mensen op in de sector.
Wel, ik ben één persoon nodig om
Maar in ieder geval de snelheid dus die 4 maanden die wij straks hebben, die zouden daar ook bij kunnen helpen.
Zeker. Ja.
Dus ik heb vanmorgen ook even met Martin gelaten.
Nice. Ja.
Zo te laat? Zo dat zei ik, hè? Dat zei ik al van tevoren.
pizza weer op.
Dan een soort kuring die dan...
Precies. Ja, ze hebben ook pizza Hawaii, dus ik dacht van die gaat nooit op, maar dus die zelf ook op.
Ja, gebrek aan meer.
Ja, precies. Dus, zelfs de pizza Hawaii gaat op. Heel heftig.
Ik vind die allemaal nog best wel lekker. Hoor.
Niks mis mee.
Nou, oh, jij bent degene die er wat op ging. Ja. Ja, nee.
Familie ligt hier nog.
Kind, maar
You hate it or you love it.
Stel dan überhaupt dat je nodig hebt. Stel dus je wil gewoon naar iets verzinnen. Naar de designsystem die misschien voorbeeld bestaat van het kanaal.
Er is een aantal doen dat we er aan hebben moeten doen.
Misschien wel, ja, React heeft daar natuurlijk.
Ja, precies. Een stukje klein beginnen is een soort van.
Te veel doen hebben dan kijk alleen maar ons leven.
Ja, precies. Nou, super. Ik vond het wel leuk als ik dan inderdaad hoe schrijven mensen het concept brengen. Dat ook zo een uitdaging gaat worden. Maar ja, we gaan elke keer zo'n systeem moeten niet alleen maar eigen dingen verhalen, projecteren. Ja, maar wij vinden het heel belangrijk dat niemand daar kan. Dus ons wil ik halen inderdaad zijn kan sowieso verwijzing of een naam of zo. Van dit is een jouw plan of waarom je het zo vraagt. En ook niet
wij doen staat ten opzichte van buiten.
Maar ik denk ook wel in dat zij zegt van het
vanuit daar verder laat ik wel niks weten.
kwaliteit. Ja, dat is gewoon
Daar ga ik ook niet mee mee. Maar enthousiaste dingen hebben wat je hebt gedaan. Het is waar dus wel enthousiast. Eén zijn business, experience die, oké, dit is de eerste stap. Dus het moet alleen zo'n incidentboekje, we gaan beginnen met schrijven, de technische kant, ik heb dus ook je kunt in de centrum nieuwe nee, ik kan niet zo over shopping aflevering, kijken en dat soort dingen.
Ik denk dat misschien kan je wel andere dingen dan bij de tijd. Ja, zeker. Ik denk altijd beter van de wereld.
Ik denk, ja, dan is mee willen doen en als ze niet meedoen.
Ik zou dit wel willen doen, maar
Ik zou nog eens van Suzanne zelf wel die trekker van die zit nu in New York en die wil heel graag dat ik samen een uitje ga doen over persuasive design. Over nee, sorry. Ik heb gewoon geen tijd om voor die tijd daar iets te doen. Ja, maar kan je niet gewoon alleen een Q&A doen? Hoe voorbereid een Q&A doen lijkt me niet echt een goed idee.
New York.
Nee, in Amsterdam. Ja, nee, anders zou ik wel ja gezegd hebben. Ja, dan mocht zij een ticket betalen. Nee, dus ik had daar al met haar gesproken. Dan Melody, die komt dan nog een beetje in de buurt, maar die zegt ook van ja, weet je, vooral op zo'n korte termijn en onbetaald.
Wordt het nog steeds toegepast of wordt het al?
design. Ja, het gaat wel over
Een beetje dat Cialdini verhaal, maar dan nog iets breder dan dat. Dus, ja, dus ik had daar inderdaad dus gewoon ja, gewoon zo het gaan van die persuasion principles van ik had mij inderdaad overal met een
As design thinking,
er zijn allemaal weer van de organisatie die dat organiseren. Andere spreker is geen designer, maar jou, maar eigenlijk wil je vast wat dan.
Ja, misschien is het dezelfde.
Ik ook wel.
Zou ik dat ook een jam met hij laat hem nog niet zien, zeg maar.
Het is wel een hele goede
Okay, we're going to start in a few minutes, so grab a seat. If you had to stand, you can now also follow the presentation at the other side of the bar. We have an extra screen and the presentation will be synced. So you can't see the speaker, you can hear them, you can see their slides. So there are more chairs over there. Okay, so we're ready for the last case study of tonight. I want to introduce you to Chris Laarman. He's a front-end developer at the design system team of Coolblue, and he's going to show and tell everything about the design system of the biggest e-commerce website probably of the Netherlands and Belgium.
One of the biggest.
One of the biggest. Yeah, so give a warm applause to Chris with his talk, Design System.
Hello everybody, thanks for the introduction and thanks for giving us the opportunity to show our design system here. And it's actually the very first time that we're going to show something about the design system outside of Coolblue, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, exciting, right? So, before we actually dive into the design system, I first want to have a little bit of talk about myself, not necessarily because I like talking about myself nor that I like look at my own face, but I want to explain something about myself because it's kind of like in line how I make decisions in my life with like how I make decisions for the design system itself. And this little story starts about like 10 years ago when we found out my girlfriend was pregnant, and it was like one big change in my life. And that actually that was like very interesting period because like we didn't plan it at all. Like it was coming out of the blue, and like not that well timed. However, like especially in the next picture, you actually can see like decided to keep the baby, name him Milan, and he's doing well. And besides that, by making that decision, like I need to make a lot of changes in my life. So I was building up my own company. I had to quit that. I was still going to school. I had to quit that too, and need to find a place to live and like a real proper job. And all of that like with a pretty hard deadline. Like all of people that get a baby like are quite experienced with that. Like you have like 20 sprints of 2 weeks and then maybe an additional sprint, and that's like a pretty hard deadline for pregnancy. But like that's actually what I really like. I like to work under pressure because that forces me to make some like unconventional and creative solutions simply because I have to, and that's fine. But I still like need to actually get a job. But like I dropped out of school, so I didn't have any papers. I didn't have any real like work experience, just my willingness to work my ass off. And like that's also like sort of like confidence that I like to have. To make like well calculated decision and take a little bit of risk here and there, and it doesn't mean that I face every challenge like head on, because that would be just ridiculous. But like it gives me like the ability to be like able to go all in, like not doubt myself too much. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Better that? Cool. So that gives me like the ability like to be able to go all in, and besides that I really love to make things work. Like I have a super pragmatic approach. Not everybody likes it that much, but like it works out pretty well in the end, I hope. So fast forwarding a few years, I started working at Blue 4.5 years ago. This is like usually what my desk looks like with a lot of ideas, a lot of post-its, a lot of screens, a lot of Blue branding, of course. But yeah, it's been like a very great opportunity to be able to like work in like super fast growing and ever changing organization. And I'm talking about like fast growing, like how fast? Well, like this fast. Like it's pretty crazy. And like I'm not here like to boast about like the revenue of Blue over the years, but actually I want to highlight that there's a very strong correlation between like the growth of the organization and actually the growth of like the development department. And that again is very important because that really changed a lot in the way how we actually want to develop. When I started at Blue, it was like around 2015. We basically had like two teams working on the web shop, pre-cart, post-cart, like everything before the cart and everything after the cart. That was about it. And like the teams had a lot of freedom, like were very autonomous. And it worked fine when you have two teams, but if you're gonna scale it up to like 8-9 teams, that's gonna cause like some problems here and there. Because people are going to write a lot of code, people are going to create a lot of designs, and as we all know with a lot of code, a lot of designs, for free we get a lot of bugs, right? And then like you start putting up one thread and like something else falls apart, and then you're going to fix that, and that actually breaks something else again. But a group of people actually started to take notice, and they were like, okay, we need to do something about this problem that we have at Blue. And they started working on a living style guide. And that was basically an external tool that just scraped some documentation of a code base, and voila, we had some documentation with some components, which worked pretty well in the beginning. However, like a few months in, the living style guide was actually more dead than living. So we kind of like figured out like that's not really gonna work for us. And this is actually where I got a bit involved in the whole project. And I basically asked them the question like, what if we don't use a tool at all? Like we've got a code base, like we can build right on top of that, right? That would be like the simplest way to do it. And I asked them like, would that actually be crazy to do? And they said yes, that's crazy to do. So I did what any sane person would do, and I actually started building it. I started on a Friday afternoon, and I just like hacked away the code base and just like see how far I can get in the weekend, right? And like the first screen that I popped out was like this one. Like it doesn't look that pretty yet, but it's just like a proof from like a technical point of view that we could actually pull it off. And like a few hours later, actually already evolved into this, which is like actually something with like multiple pages. We had navigation, it was still all hard coded, but it was just like proof of concept to be able to show to the company like, okay, I think we can actually do this. And like fast forwarding to about now, like this is how the design system kind of looks right now. There's like a lot more in it, a lot of components, utilities, and style stuff, and a lot. But for the story, I'm gonna stick to this one. So like after the weekend, I started talking to some people. So we had some technical pathfinders from who I actually had to get approval. Like, can we actually do this on our web shop? Like we, as I just showed, like we do a lot of revenue on the web shop. We don't really want to break that one. So they were like, yeah, sure, that's fine, I guess. You can do that. That was cool, nice. I talked to like the UX manager we had back then and the UX pathfinders. They were like very positive about that too. So we're like, okay, we can actually go for it. And then we talked to the whole front end group. Like, are you guys taking along with this? Like, do you think you guys want to work like that? And they were like, yeah, sure, like we can do that. So like over the course of 3 weeks, we actually like phased out the old style guide and like changed it to like the design system that we had. However, like even though like it sounds like a nice design system fairy tale, we were not near there yet, of course, because at that point it was still basically a pet project of mine, and I love working on it, but like working in your weekends and your evenings only goes so far, right? So at a certain point, like we actually want to like formalize a team. We actually wanted to be able to really focus on it and like make it our priority to actually do something with that. So we went to talk to like the head of technology, and he said like, yeah, well, it's pretty cool, I like the idea, but I think you should talk to the CEO. So we went to like CEO, And he's like, yeah, I cool, like the idea, like go talk to the head of tech and get your approval. Like, alright, that's cool. That went like pretty smooth. However, like the process of like actually getting me out of the team that I was in into like the design system team took a bit longer, but still we had that going on. And like the simple message is basically this. And like it sounds kind of unconventional, right? Just go talk to people. Like it's so simple. Just go talk to people and see what they think about it. And that's like the easiest way actually to get your stuff done. Because like with design system, you're dealing with people a lot. Actually. So cool. Like now we actually had something working and we had a team. But having a team actually also means that suddenly you have to like gather insights. You have to report on certain stuff because if you're telling you're making progress, like how are you actually going to show that you are making progress? So that's when we started like gathering insights. And first of all, like the first priority was like, what do we actually have? Like I made a big list of all the components that we had in our code base, and started like looking at like, okay, what is it actually? Where it's being used? Like how does it work? What's the difference between breakpoints? What should it actually do? And like that led to like sort of like a document like this. I started like posting all kinds of comments in there and to think like, what do I actually think of it? Which basically like I spotted several patterns in those comments. So first of all, like templating was pretty important. Like we copied our HTML snippets like everywhere in the code base. And for example, for a button component, we had like 400 different snippets, which was like usually the same button, but like still a different HTML snippet. And then you have things like complexity, size, reusability. But those things are actually kind of hard to measure, right? What I think that's very complex, somebody else might think like, I don't think it's that complex. So it's very ambiguous. Which led us to like the next point. For that we set up a component norm. We just thought like, okay, how can we actually like mold this in the process of improving the components? So first of all, just getting insights. We just want to have insights in like what do we have, like, and like do we actually want to keep it? Like as simple as that. Like do we actually want to keep this component or we just want to replace it anyways? Well, once we get past that point, we're gonna check like, okay, we're gonna make it ready for implementation. That basically means like setting the scope for the component. Like what kind of like data can we put in there? What kind of options will the component have? Simple as that. And making sure that's pretty stable. And once that's stable for all the implementations, you can move to the next phase. And then you can like start like rebuilding the whole thing in the background. You can like change the design of it. And you can change like the technical implementation of it without actually changing the implementations itself. And like that provides like a very smooth experience in that. But up to this point we've only been talking about like the component itself, but as we all know, like components don't necessarily live on their own. For example, if you take like form components, you want all the form components in your form to like work the same, like feel the same, like interact in the same way. Like you want the hover styles to be the same, you want like validation to be the same way. So we actually started looking at like what's the overarching consistency and how like also can we technically align all those things in the background and how can we make sure that it also visually connects all together. And the very last point, which actually may be the hardest one, is creating a single source of truth. Which kind of means that we had multiple components for the same purpose. We had multiple button components, but like we actually want to have one to have like full control on it. But you also want to make sure that like every implementation of that component uses the templates that you provide the design system to. So if you change something, it's changed everywhere, and you don't have to like manually go through like all different implementation like parts of the code base to make sure it actually works. But if you look at and this is actually like how it looks in the process. So we can actually report that month over month just to check like how does the quality of our components is being improved. But look at that slide. How can we actually tell from this like what's the quality of this the elements that are in there? Yeah, Ben knows, but Ben's a cheater, he's on my team. So for that actually we created a little browser plugin that allows you to do this. It basically creates like a heat map of your website, and that's based on like what level of component it is in your component norm, and like it gives a very visual way of like showing like what the quality is of your page of your website. and we can like quite easily redirect that to other teams too, so they can talk to their PO like, okay, this part of your website or this part of your page that you're responsible for is pretty red. Like we can help you with that, but we can actually start improving that, and we can like target that. Red is bad, like it's lowest quality norm. It's basically based on like the colors we can. But like now you have something to measure, you have your components and you have your team, but now you actually want people to start using it, right? That's like kind of like the most important thing. And that also kind of made us realize, and it has been like said before in during this evening, a design system is basically more a change management tool than anything else. Like all technical challenges, all design challenges, they can all be overcome. Like there are enough tools and resources and articles out there to help you out with that, but like changing the way people work, that's actually the hard part. And again, like simply listen to people. Don't hear what they have to say and then do your own thing anyways. Actually listen to people, what they have to say. Because they actually might be right. Right? It's like we are pretty confident we're building a design system, we have an idea how we want to do it, but they might actually have a point, because like we're pretty biased if you're working on the design system with the design system all day every day, but like some people might use it once a week or once a month, or just like in a single occurrence. And like even worse, you might be wrong. That can also be the case. To make sure that we actually were still on the right track, we hosted some feedback sessions. So we had multiple sessions where we had like a healthy mix of front-end developers, back-end developers, and UX designers together, and also with a mix of people who are like very fond of the design system, not so very fond of the design system, and kind of like neutral people. In those sessions we had some pretty bold statements to trigger people a bit, and let them have the conversations together, like, and they can share their experience, and we didn't really got involved in that. And it was like a very effective way to get feedback from the different people there. So basically, out of the 3 sessions, we had like 73 points of feedback, which is very valuable. Yeah, so like one of the things that people ran into, because like design system was kind of like going pretty successful, we had a lot of content in there. People found it hard to find stuff they were looking for. So for example, like we have a search functionality so people can actually find their component that they need. But also like if you look at colors, for example, like yeah, sure, like you can have your whole color palette, but you can also see that we have background colors, border colors, icon colors, text colors, and stuff like that. But we also have a typography chapter, and there we also have the colors. It's better. They're like with typography, kind of like the same, right? So if people are looking for typography, they can still find text colors. If the people are just generally looking for colors, they can find text colors. If people are looking for utilities that we have for our text, people can still find the colors. So, like by just like duplicating your content, basically, it will be easier for people to find it. So, at some point, we're gonna get to this phase where like everybody really likes it in the beginning and they start using it, but at a certain point people want a new functionality and they're standing at the desk and saying this. But it's only really gonna be for a page. Well, at that point, like I'm like, do I be honest or nice about this? Because like if you're gonna build something specific for a page, it's basically a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So if you're gonna tie it to your functionality that you specifically need, obviously nobody else can use it, so yes, you're right that it's only going to be for your page, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. And that's also like the part where you like really start talking to people, like tearing those designs apart, like, okay, what do we actually have in that? What kind of like design patterns do we have? What kind of components do we actually already have? And that's really helpful. So, what we noticed the last few months, because we first have been steering on like making sure that people actually started using it, which was like quite successful, and also like the design system team itself helped a lot with that. We started noticing that people actually started using it a lot, which is kind of like becoming a problem almost, because we're spending like a lot of our time on sport for other people, which is like, it's very cool that it's happening right now. We were talking to a lot of developers, a lot of designers, but yeah, we are like really helping people a lot. And by saying that, like, we can actually like also use some help, just like all the other presenters and stuff like that. We are also like looking for people to help us build out the team, because like there's a lot of work still to be done, but like it's also like a very good position to be in. So something like this was also came across in the other presentations. Like, when is the design system actually ready? And I also always like to answer that question with another question. It's like, when is your company ready? When is Coolblue ready? And hopefully that answer is never, and not like next month, because you might have some problems with your job security. But yeah, like, a design system is a project. It's a product, not a project. Like, project has a beginning and an end, and like a product will always be part of your company, and will always need to be like evolved over time. And with that, like, I kind of like come to like the core values of Coolblue. So how we started with it, we just went for it. Like, we started proof of concept, just ran with it, talked to a lot of people, and made sure like we could actually do it. And in that, we made some unconventional choices. Like, building it like right into the web shop. It's not necessarily like what people would have chosen as their first choice, and also might in the future cause some problems. But back then, it was like, for me at least, the best decision to take to make sure we actually get started. And beside that, we want to be very flexible. Like I just said, like we are like being overwhelmed with providing support, which means like we have to drop our own work from time to time. But like the first and foremost priority is being able to provide for the teams, because they are our customers, and just as like Coolblue is crazy for their customers, like we are also crazy for our customers, because that's basically why we exist with the design system team. Like, without designers and developers, we wouldn't need it, and we wouldn't have it, and we'd have like different problems with it. But above all, probably the most important one is being friends. And being friends doesn't necessarily always mean that you have to be nice to each other, but you have to be honest. And with that, like, we can have an actual good talk together, and sometimes maybe need a discussion, but afterwards, like, drink a beer together. That's very important. And with all of that combined, we can like simply amaze. Like, we can create an amazing design system in an amazing company, and like really improve people's lives that work with design system. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Chris. I saw again a lot of people taking pictures and writing. For the people that don't have a notebook with them, we will share all of the slides with you, so don't worry, you can look back at it at home. Well, you know the drill. Some feedback for Chris also, much appreciated. While you get feedback, we will get ready for the Q&As, so we will answer all of your burning questions. Just a few things. We already saw some people leaving. If you want to leave, that's perfectly fine, but don't forget your goodie bag. They're on the bar, just take them, that's okay. And I think if all speakers want to come forward, we can start Q&A.
Ja, mag. Als je liever even wil zitten of even wil hangen, leunen, dat kan. Nou, als het goed is, gaat hij zo uit. Nee, maar jij doet vragen zo. En dat duurt een half uur misschien, zoals we moeten weten. En dan mag het wel wat minder dan half uur.
Yeah, so have a seat, speakers.
Ja? Ja.
Deze uitzetten?
Ja, wacht, doen we deze wel even op zwart scherm, want Bart zit niet op te letten.
Nice.
En misschien even Bart. Bart, zou je misschien het scherm omhoog kunnen doen en de beamer uit? Oké.
Dat is licht. Wat dan hier dingen? Wat dan hier? Waar is het kistje gebleven?
Die staat hieronder, hier, deze.
Daaronder.
Ja.
Okay,
Okay.
well, we struggle a bit with the lights. Maybe there's already someone that has a question for maybe ANBB or Coolblue. Put your hands up and... or for Matthijs, of course. Nope.
Yay!
It's not really from me, from my husband. So, but it's for Coolblue. How do you address requirements like those from GDPR efficiently? That's the first question. And the second one is, how do you include and evidence these in your workflow to satisfy the design by privacy requirements?
Specific question?
Yeah, like I'm trying to answer like the question. Like the first line was about GDPR.
Yeah.
So like what can we do with the design system with GDPR guidelines, basically? Like for GDPR, we are not really like focusing on that. Like it is a thing within the company itself, but doesn't necessarily impact our design system as far as we know. And like same kind of like applies to privacy, right? Like I personally believe like it's a different level of like abstraction in your company. So like design system basically provides all the tools, and like the teams themselves are responsible for the implementations, and therefore also like with that comes like the data, and they're actually responsible for that, and not the design system itself. Yeah, so like the response is like checkbox can be checked in advance, like with like approval for newsletters, pushing stuff like that. But again, like that's the responsibility of the team that's actually implementing that checkbox on the places where they need it. So that's kind of like the online.
Some more questions. Some more questions. Yeah, in the back.
Hi, thank you for the presentations. They were lovely. So I actually have questions for all candidates in a way. I was wondering to which extent accessibility is part of the processes, and to what extent validation is also part of the processes.
That's still a part we should discover. So a few designers are still busy with discovering what accessibility for us means and how we can implement that. So even with also motion is something we discover with students and find out how motion can be implemented at AMD. So that's still something we're discovering, but if you think of adding it, it will be something that will be added with rationals to DSM and will be shared in all chapters to create adoption. And I think the same as other rationals that we also check if we have some checks from UX designers or teams that we also check on how accessibility is taken in the designs or developments. So we keep that in mind, but it's not yet something we have in the design system. Yeah.
Yeah, we do a bit more with accessibility right now. Like we actually hired front-enders some time ago, not necessarily for the design system team, but for Coolblue in general, who was really focused on accessibility. Yeah, like it's something that we are more and more aware of. Like also like the click area, for example, for elements that you use on mobile, making sure you have certain attributes that you can provide for your components. But also like what we have is like a generic block for like other attributes that you want to add to your component. So like with that, like it's also like fairly easy for like the teams using it to start using it. So like it's a bit of a balance between like have like a generic way of like providing stuff that they can do for accessibility, and like having some stuff like hard coded or like hardwired inside the components. But like it's definitely becoming more and more important, and we like putting more and more focus on it.
Yeah, all I have to add is that if we look at the survey, the Netherlands is running a bit behind versus worldwide in the accessibility, adapting accessibility within their design system, and maybe that's, we can go a bit more into detail, but that's what I can add.
Well, I had a question. We kind of implemented a design system in our organization for a really big project. I think we covered out most of the points. Like, you have as part of what others covered as part of the design system. The one real, thing I struggle with is, what if you got different technology stacks and you got different technologies and different projects? The one thing which is really becoming, well, I really don't have an idea how to solve it, is, when you've got different technologies, then how do you work with code snippets? Because he's got so many different technologies. I was thinking of a way by which, right now it's a project which is going to get extended onto the enterprise. That's the plan. But I just can't figure this part out, because if we implement it for this project, it's not like the other technologies would be able to use the UI snippets.
Sorry, not a developer.
Yeah, we actually, it has been a thing for us too. Like when we started with design system, like we quite deliberately chose to just do it for the web shop. Although we also have mobile apps, we also have internal React applications, we have email marketing, which are all different techniques basically. But it is really a hard one. I think, as far as I know, nobody really got it figured out. What you often see that people do is building multiple design systems. But yeah, that has a side effect again that you don't really have single source truth anymore. And I know, for example, for mobile apps, there are some applications that can provide screenshots from your apps, and then you can also fairly easy get some documentation for your snippets in there. But those tools are also kind of costly. So we're not focusing on that right now, but we are aware that's a difficult thing to tackle. So, if you figure it out, let us know. Right?
At Coolblue, you probably do a lot of A/B testing. How much freedom do you give your designers compared to the single source of truth of the design system?
Good question.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely do a lot of A/B testing. It's with all things, it's kind of finding a balance in it. So in some things we might not be in favor necessarily, but it works out really well. With a website with a lot of revenue, it's really hard to go against that. But we're always trying to find a way to make sure that we don't keep just adding variations. Sure, if it's a good idea, let's just make that bigger. Make sure that we use that same new variation everywhere, so we can phase out an old one, so you can still keep that consistency. And that's constantly the challenge and the process that we work with. At least we try to.
Question to Google. What do you use for documentation of your design system?
I was checking the time.
For documentation, we basically just use our own native code. We don't use any tools at all. It's just built on the web shop with the web shop code. So yeah, that's kind of it. I built a Twig extension, because we use Twig as templating engine. That can you can provide a code snippet, and that gets outputted as a visual snippet on how it looks, and also in the code itself. So you only have to provide once, to make it easier to add stuff.
Okay, we have time for a few more questions.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I was thinking, as your design system is growing and getting a team and the components they get more complex, and of course you get a lot more requests. And how are you going about prioritizing? So how do you prioritize which components or new assets getting first and get developed first?
Start with Anne now.
Good question. Well, we're now in a dedicated design system team for a month now, so we get requests, and all the designers in our teams do their own requests, so they build their own designs, and if they have a new component or want to add a new component, then they have to follow the process. So we see all the requests in a Trello, and we communicate about it. Maybe there is already a component existed. So then again, the question first is, why do you want it? And then if there is a really good answer to it, you test it, and then we look at the impact. So if the component really touches all of the different aspects of your site, then that has a bigger priority than maybe a smaller element that really doesn't touch everything.
Is it for rating systems?
What we do is we ask with the request is what insights do you get from data or from user insights, so UX research, but also like low fidelity research or whatever is possible in the time and pressure that teams have. And we challenge them to do some more research if they don't have enough insights to make it valuable enough. So we always challenge them to get in discussion with us and show really the value for the users, and also the impact that it has for the organizations and building it. So yeah, it's based on feeling, so we know quite good how to interact with the UX designers and developers and challenge them to show us the value with user insights and data.
Like at Kablu, we were trying to find like a balance between like how you can handle that. Like for us, like the supporting the teams is our biggest priority. But like obviously you cannot do everything at once. But like we're having our design system for about 2 years now, which also like means you have like quite some personal context within Kablu. So like we're trying to find a balance between like doing ourselves, doing it together with somebody else, or let somebody else have a go at it. To like we cannot like fight every battle, so we need to pick our battles in that. And like in the end, like we can still make a call on like the quality of it, and also like it kind of depends on like when they actually need it. So you need to plan ahead like as far as possible. Like if people want to test with it, like it might have like actually a lower priority, because like the quality can be a bit worse than you actually would want ideally. But then they can test it, and then like in tandem you can basically create like the component how you want it together with like the team that's going to use it, and then with that like you can combine the knowledge of their team, like the business logic that they have in their domain and their requirements for the component, combined with like the knowledge from the design system team over the whole web shop. See like, okay, there's these other cases that we should also take care of, and with that you come to a good solution. But again, like it's also like about exposure. It's about like on what kind of pace does this happen? Like, or is it like something that's actually going wrong or something new? Or it's not a real easy answer to that, as you know.
Yeah, I can add that we have we've seen you talk about the rating of whether components should go in there or not. It also has to do with process, like you mentioned, and if you are thinking about setting up a process for evaluating or how to get a new component into your design system, it might be cool to check out. We hand out some free tools, so we have a way to judge which components you're going to need in your design system. So it's a simple checklist you can do with your team. We also have a tool, it's called a process puzzle. You can create a new process to judge how you're going to make sure new components get in there, how you rate current components, and etc. etc. And I think just in addition to what you said, this may be also different for having a design system for a long time or just starting out, because one of the tips that we found in the survey is also, especially in the beginning, maybe it's okay that you didn't get the quality that you wanted. You just want to embrace people cooperating with you, so you really are very supportive of oh, I got a new component, that's great, you know. So I think that's all I had to add.
Okay, I think we're gonna do one more question. It's someone in the front, yeah.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. I have a question for all of you, basically. Since the design system constantly evolves, it also means that you need to keep all the people in the project, or in all the different projects, up to date about what the latest state of the design system is. In your experience, is there any good way to communicate these updates? And is it, for example, better to do this in smaller batches and do it frequently, or to save it all up and do a bigger presentation, for example, with a bit more time in between?
Yeah, no, it's actually one of the bigger challenges that we have also. Like we have a design system channel where we post most of our updates. Like all the people, all the stakeholders, all designers, developers are in there that are interested in it. Yeah, it's definitely a challenging thing. Like, what are you going to communicate? Like, if I'm going to work on some internal workings of the component, like, am I actually going to like update people about that? But like usually there are the requests from people also come in the design system channel, and we pick it up quite quickly. So like maybe a day or a few days later, we can extend the update like, hey, this is like a new component that we want to use. It gives some extra context about like why it's being added or what it actually does. Using the Slack channel actually works best for us right now. But like in the future, we might want to expand on that to provide more data inside the design system itself. So like we already have a like little tag that you get like with like a new component. So that gives a little bit more insights in that. But like in the future, we want to give some demos internally in the company to give like a broader group of people more information.
So we do the same, but we do it more face to face. So we have a UX chapter every Tuesday for an hour or longer. It depends what teams there are, and we discuss. We talk about which components are new or what are we doing now. Now we're analyzing the design system process again. So we're telling about them what we're doing, and we're asking also to collaborate with us. Another thing that we do in Poncho is also giving like icons to components. You already saw it with the design system of Coolblue. So giving the status if something is updated or is still editing is very important when people are working with the design system tools. And what we do regularly is updates to managers, but also to important stakeholders. You see that some people are more interested to get some updates regularly. So we do that mostly face to face, and just what you said, just go to people and talk with them. They really like to hear what the status of the design system is and how it's evolving, and the future plans also. So you have to find the way that it's in our company. It's a lot of politics, so we have to be very careful to how we are people approaching. And I think you have to find out what works, so iterate with that, and you will get a feeling of what is the best way for you. Did you add something?
I think all I have to add is that what we see is that people add it to their, if you're working in Scrum process, add it to their sprint demos at the end, mentioning components that were used in their design system. And another thing that I saw from surveys, maybe don't be ashamed if it's going to be like a bi-weekly email or something. It can be something like that as well. People use that as well to communicate about the impact their design system has had. So don't overthink it.
Okay, well, thank you, all of you. So let's give them an applause. learned a lot from you, and we heard the different tools you use. And if you're still looking for a right tool for your design system, it might be interesting to head over to the other part of the room where Frontify is going to give a short presentation, and you can ask them all the questions you want, and they will answer. So, and don't forget about the goodie bag, exactly. And I have one small thing. If you are parked downstairs in the garage of SDU, you might you might think you can't get out because the gate won't open, but there's a large button on your left side. If you push that one, the gate will open, so don't panic.
Is dit allemaal klaar? Of, Ja. Ik let op zo'n daar, dus dat had je dat kastje allemaal? Oké. Ja, precies.
Same code. You build right on top of that, so it's a different route that's only exposed internally. Yeah, like you can just like exit, like just like basically routing points. So like if you would go to that design system, then you would go to the design system. No. So when you use it for like the website right now, there's like also like
So I just heard that if you want to have more beer or stay longer, there's a bar downstairs and it's open till 11. So just for your information.
So like yeah, that's like pretty big change. We actually started the design system. Basically,
yeah, that's. I tried to support one. It's very indeed. Making all kind of reports and all.
Thinking about that. Still, you put that one out. It's with quite close. I'll do another I think like a lot of people are actually